In a moment of need, every second counts. So first responders, delivery drivers, and visitors can find your home fast, even in the dark. This is about more than just a number. It's about safety, visibility, and peace of mind. We created a house number that is not only a beacon of safety, but also a work of art. Crafted from durable stainless steel and waterproof acrylic, with efficient, low-voltage LED backlighting, it's uniquely yours. Choose from 6 sizes, 4 fonts, and 6 colors, and match your home's mood with bright, neutral, or warm white halo lighting. Add dusk to dawn, dimming and timing controls for complete command.
Every order includes free worldwide shipping, plus a 2-year warranty on lighted numbers and all powering accessories.
This is the ultimate home upgrade. A perfect blend of style, quality, and function.
Buy yours today.
Welcome to the Turnpike Sports Spotlight. Dave Weishottle with you. The gaming industry is constantly changing and evolving, and that's what makes a company like TransUnion so valuable for gaming operators. The reports reveal incredibly valuable information about who is gambling and the state of the gambling industry in general. They have just released another very important report for the third quarter of 2025. We're going to find out what that report has uncovered, because on the line we have a returning guest, the head of TransUnion's gaming business, Declan Raines. Declan, welcome back to the show.
Thanks.
Certainly anyone involved in the gaming industry knows about the great work TransUnion does. I think it's one of those essential companies that is a critical resource for gaming operators and anyone who works in the casino or betting business. But for people out there who aren't part of the gaming industry, what is TransUnion and what does it do for the gaming industry, not only in this country, but for around the world?
Sure. So I think most folks would be familiar with TransUnion as the credit bureau. From a gaming standpoint, we provide a number of different services to the gaming industry in order to facilitate trusted transactions within the regulated gaming market. That spans from compliance solutions for things like KYC. That's when operators are confirming that you're the person that you say you are and that you're the correct age to be able to engage with their products. We also provide operators with insights into consumers as to their responsible gaming functions as well. So they're able to assess their players and make informed, responsible decisions as to how they interact with them.
Now, as I said, recently TransUnion published a very important betting report, and I'm sure everyone in the gaming industry is poring over it and dissecting it right now and really getting into the numbers. But before we get into the numbers and what the report says, tell me something about the methodology of the report and really the scope of the research that was conducted.
Sure. So this is a consumer-based survey that TransUnion conducts on a quarterly basis. We aggregate these results and provide insights into consumers at the macro level. So looking at their spending habits, their responses to shifts in the macroeconomic environment. And then from a gaming standpoint, we also ask consumers about their betting activity, their engagement with betting products. And then we're able to filter those wider macroeconomic responses and distill it down to the impacts to the gaming industry, right? So we're seeing people respond to overarching economic conditions in a positive way for the gaming industry or a negative way. We're able to understand and cut this insight by those who spend more than others do, and generate insights for the industry and beyond in order to support a sustainable regulated industry in the United States.
Lately, whenever I talk to gaming operators, they've started really talking about Gen Z and millennials, and certainly they want to appeal to all groups of people, but those two groups of people have really taken the focus for a lot of gaming operators. Before we get into what you found for each group, what are the age ranges of the different groups? Because these classifications are so important for the gaming operators. And when it comes to casinos and marketing their product and formulating business plans, they really want to focus in on the different groups of people. So what are the age ranges are we talking about here?
Well, you put me on the spot here as a millennial myself. I'm not actually sure what the cutoffs are.
I gotta tell you, I don't even know what I am. Someone told me I'm a baby. I don't think I'm a baby boomer. I'm certainly not a millennial, so I really don't even know. I mean, myself,
that's ironic because that probably puts you in Gen X, which I believe is actually called the forgotten generation. Ironic that you forgot that as well.
I absolutely forgot it.
I believe we can confirm this. I believe millennial, the cutoff is 1986. Gen Z is a good question. Not quite sure on the cutoff for that. Mm-hmm. Gen X is late 70s, and prior to that is the boomer generation.
Before we get into the specific numbers of the report, did you see gambling up across all generations? Did the overall percentage of respondents who participate in some form of gambling increase? And was there anything surprising about the numbers when you looked at the overall figures? I mean, certainly, like I said, operators don't want to neglect a segment of the population that will use their products. So is it generally good news across all generations for the gambling industry?
In this edition of the report, we did focus on the millennial and Gen Z demographics, just because of the importance and implications of that for the wider industry. In terms of those older generations, we actually did see a small decline compared to younger generations in this instance of the report compared to the same period last year.
Now, in the report, I saw that TransUnion uses something called a true audience marketing intelligence platform, which looks at the different groups of people. What is the whole idea about that platform, and why is it such an important tool when looking at a particular group of people?
Sure. So that is our flagship marketing solution suite that enables companies to generate insights into their customers, in order to create forward-thinking marketing engagement strategies, right? Every brand has their own version of what a loyal customer looks like, and they want to personalize their marketing outreach to those existing customers, but also find individuals that walk, talk, and act like these customers as well. And so when it comes to the True Audience platform, it enables companies in order to generate what are the key data points that connect their most loyal customers. And from a gaming standpoint, we're also able to look at what does this segment walk, talk, and act like across multiple different operators across the wider industry in order to generate insights for the report that we've recently released.
Now, about the report that was recently released, what was interesting to me is that the increase in the gambling figures were really driven by the younger members of society, specifically Gen Z and millennials. I mean, I loved reading the report. You said the chief reason was that the members of that age group invested in speculative financial opportunities. I mean, for people out there, I guess that would be the definition of gambling. I think that's speculative financial opportunities. Why do you think we saw an increase in this sector of the population?
Yeah, I think it's fairly common sense at this point to connect the dots between individuals who trade and make financial investment decisions via platforms like Robinhood or Coinbase, etc. Access to this type of financial product has become much more widely available in the internet era, right? Gen Z millennials have grown up with technology, and so an extension of that is the way that they make investments and trades, right? We see a very high correlation between those who utilize these types of services and their likelihood to engage in betting as well. I think far more cynical folks may even say that those who play around with the likes of financial trading tools are effectively gambling themselves. So I think the correlation between those two items makes a lot of sense. And we've seen that come to the fore in this report, right? We see that the younger demographics, the Gen Zs, the millennials that do engage in mobile betting of some kind are much more likely to utilize these types of financial platforms, as well as other interesting points like seeking adventure on vacations.
Mm-hmm.
That was one that was quite interesting this time around.
I was talking off air to people who read the report, and I was saying this is one of those reports that will cause gaming operators to have meetings upon meetings with their marketing people. And let me just bring up a couple of numbers that really struck me when looking at the report. The percentage of respondents who participated in any betting activity. Gen Z for the second quarter of 2024 hit 26%. For the second quarter of 2025, that number is 34%. And for millennials in the second quarter of 2024 was 31%. In the second quarter of 2025 is 42%. Gen Z, second quarter of 2024 was 25%, and it rose to this in the second quarter of 2025 to 28%. And the baby boomers really held steady at 17% for both quarters. What should these numbers be telling gaming operators? Because for me, especially with Gen Z and millennials, they're pretty striking numbers. What should the gaming operators be doing right now with regard to the numbers when they see this kind of increase?
Yeah, I think it solidifies what they probably already know, which is that these two demographics in particular within online products are by far and away the largest cohort of the active player base for online operators. And what that means is there are implications for that from an outbound acquisition standpoint, right? I think in the case of particularly Gen Z, there might be a perception that these are young folks, right? When the reality is that they've been in the job market, they've been in they've evolved from being in college, et cetera, to entering the workforce and actually entered the workforce during a pretty strong job market. So they have disposable income, just as millennials have strengthened their incomes over the years, and so it is a profitable cohort for operators to generate their acquisition strategies around. That's not to say that they should obviously be foregoing or forgetting Gen X and baby boomers, but from a macro standpoint, Gen Z and millennials are the largest cohort by far, and are going to be for some time now, given wider demographic and economic trends.
I thought it was very striking when you were talking about, why we are seeing some of these increase in Gen Z and millennials. I mean, it said they are more likely to invest in the stock markets or these impulse purchases. I guess they see something on ESPN and let me jump on the bet and really jump on that opportunity. And it was very interesting. They are taking vacations where there are casinos, and since they are there, they might gamble a little bit. I mean, we always talk about Vermont here, and because they keep track of their in-state bettors, and also people who bet that are from out of state and visit Vermont. And with the fall here and people wanting to see leaves change, I guess there'll probably be an increase in betting in Vermont. Are they some of the reasons why we're seeing these groups of people really increase their gambling from one year to another?
Yeah, I think a byproduct as well is we're 7 years post PASPA, the repeal of PASPA, and so we've reached a maturity point in this industry where consumers are aware that there are legal regulated options available to them, and are making buying choices and putting their money where their mouth is, that they want to engage with these types of products. I think it's also an important point, as I mentioned earlier, to look at the income increases we saw in that really strong job market that we had during COVID and post-COVID, starting to slightly taper off now, where we're seeing some headwinds on that. But by and large, over the last 5 years, we've seen household incomes increase, and a byproduct of that is individuals have been allocating disposable income towards betting activity. Additionally, in that post-COVID environment, you also saw dispersion, right? It was no longer the case that you necessarily had to live in a major city in order to have access to jobs. We saw remote or hybrid environments, which means that you're going to see a wider dispersion of this spending activity across different states, whether folks are moving to places like Vermont or putting their disposable income to visiting it and then visiting casinos, etc. There's a myriad of different factors in play as to why we're seeing these kinds of results.
Well, let me ask you about that. In your report, what does it say about how the different respondents gamble? Are we talking basically online platforms? Are we talking about visitations to a retail casino or a retail sports book? What did the report reveal about the preferred method of gambling with regard to these certain groups?
We ask individuals whether they engage with casino, sportsbook, or lottery products, and then we distinguish that between land and online channels as well, so that we're able to track engagement and spend within those three different products, but also within the two channels as well.
One of the fascinating things about TransUnion reports, for me anyway, is taking a look at a couple of them throughout the year and seeing how this industry changes and evolves. I'm curious. Certainly a gaming operator loves to say, hey, numbers are going up, everything's great. But over time, is there a concern about Gen Z and the millennial group about whether they can sustain these numbers? I mean, these two groups are the youngest segments of society. Usually they get paid less than the older members of society. They're starting families, they're buying homes, student loans they have to deal with. So this segment of society has to deal with debt and loans. Are there concerns regarding these two segments of society of the sustainability of these numbers?
I think there will always be a concern around sustainability within the industry. That is a critical topic that should never go away, right? We should always be diligent in the way that we're evaluating sustainability, not just at the macro level, but critically at the individual level, because circumstances change. Just because your income has steadily increased over the last 5 years does not mean that's going to remain the case. And as you correctly call out, we're seeing some headwinds regarding consumer spending, specifically within those younger generations, notably millennials and Gen Z, things like student loan repayments, right?
Sure.
That's going to impact their disposable income. And it remains to be seen whether they decide to reduce their spending in betting with betting products compared to other areas that their disposable income is spent towards. So I think it's still always going to be a critical item for operators to be able to have a really good grasp of their players, the sustainability of the individuals that are engaging with their products, because we do see some macroeconomic conditions that are very likely to impact these segments in particular, and operators will need to remain diligent when developing things like their responsible gaming strategies, developing a proactive mitigating approach rather than a reactive one. And I think that's going to be the case in perpetuity, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, over the years, the gaming industry has stressed more and more of the importance of responsible gambling and creating programs and procedures to help people if they need it with regard to gambling. And it seems like more than ever, it's important when we're talking about the increase in gambling of Gen Z and millennials, because as we talked about, they have debt, they have financial responsibilities that they have to manage if they want to enjoy participating in gambling activities. And this newest report from TransUnion shows me how important responsible gambling programs are. Do you think we're going to see more responsible gambling programs and more responsible gaming tools from the industry based on the numbers that we're seeing on who participates in gambling?
Yeah, I think we continue to see within the operators that we support in particular that responsible gaming continues to be a critical area for investment. That's both in tools regarding education for their customers as to how to control their betting activity, whether that's through tools like deposit timeout, self-exclusion, etc. But I think we'll also see an evolution of that in regards to like we've seen in other markets like the UK and Australia, where regulators start to install requirements for operators as to how they are evaluating responsible gaming risk on an ongoing basis. I think that will be the new kind of era when it comes to responsible gaming standards in the United States. We'll start to see regulators look at developing policy and frameworks that formalize what operators need to do, when they need to do it, how they do it, on an ongoing basis within specifically the online channels. And I expect that operators will continue to invest to stay in front of any type of regulatory enhancements, but also critically install it as part of the culture of the operator itself, right? Having responsible gaming culturally applicable, not just to the responsible gaming teams, but to all functions within that organization, from marketing through to compliance. Responsible gaming, I expect to remain and build upon the position that we've seen in the U.S. today.
As we come to the end of 2025, what do you see as some of the gaming trends that operators should be aware of or look out for in 2026? I mean, we're going through some interesting times when it comes to the economy of the United States and of the world. I mean, what are some of the issues that sports betting and gaming operators should be aware of in the coming year? And how much does the gaming industry have to concern itself with the present state of the economy as well as the trade policies of the different countries?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting macroeconomic time in the world, and I would say that the operators need to pay attention in the same way that pretty much all industries do, right? Looking at a macro level, what are the headwinds or tailwinds in regards to disposable spending available for individual consumers, because they are likely to be impacted by any negative trends towards that. I think we'll see operators shift to a more efficient approach when it comes to things like outbound marketing, right? I think we're well past the days of very, very high cost of acquisition, very generous deposit bonuses like we saw between 2018 to kind of 2023, 2024. I think we'll see operators start to get a little bit more diligent about how much they're spending on this type of activity in order to insulate themselves from any downward trend in engagement. And just like any other industry, right? Whether you're an airline, whether you're a mobile phone provider, these are all things that every company is looking at right now. It's still an uncertain period of time, but I think the next year is going to be very interesting to see what are the impacts specifically within gaming if we do see any kind of decline in consumer spending at the macro level.
Declan, we're running out of time, but can you give out a website for TransUnion so people can find out more about it and also read the TransUnion very important gaming industry report?
Sure. You can find us at transunion.com, and we are under the gaming segment under industries, and you'll scroll to the bottom of the page there and you will find the report available to download.
Declan Raines, head of TransUnion's gaming business, thank you so much for coming on and talking about TransUnion and the very important betting report that was recently published by TransUnion. TransUnion does incredible work for the gaming industry, and the information it provides is absolutely incredible. Please come back on and keep us updated about what's happening with TransUnion and the gaming industry, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me again. Appreciate it.
That'll do it for us this week. We'll see you next time on The Turnpike.